Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Businessology Show. You know, it's sponsored by our firm, Blummer CPAs. We help agencies all over the U.S., large agencies, figure out their financial processes and things like that. And we bring great guests that help us understand the agency profession and things like that. So you have heard and Carl Smith, who I know from Engine Works, his agency he had a long time ago. And then he came in to start running the Bureau of Digital, and that was back in 2016, I think. So there's a lot to say in your bio, Carl, but I just want to welcome you to the Businessology Show, man. Thank you for coming on the show.
It.
Yeah,
thanks for having me. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, well, let's see. I was on your show. I don't know. It was a long time ago when you had Engine Works, and I'm saying it right? Your agency was Engine Works.
Yeah, you're doing better than most of us did.
Okay, so I'm saying it may be better than you are, right? So, okay. So people know you from Bureau of Digital now, and so we have a community too for firms that we lead, and we really found through the pandemic, a community became a huge deal in the pandemic. So tell us a little bit about Bureau of Digital and the community aspect and kind of the teaching you guys do. People know about it, but I just want you to give us the elevator pitch.
No worries. So the Bureau started back in 2012. Happy Cog launched it because they weren't really sure what they were doing. And we were like, holy crap, if y'all don't know, we're all looking at y'all.
No, we're following you.
Exactly. So we got together in Portland, Oregon, about 24 owners, and we just shared what was working, what wasn't. I think the most important thing is we started with an oath that we wouldn't share anything that a reasonable person would deem sensitive or confidential.
Sweet.
Like a verbal non-disclosure.
Nice.
And then we talked right away about layoffs. And we were all like, is this what we're doing? Okay.
Wow.
But the Bureau has gone on to be, we've got over 18,000 people in the collective community from alumni of events and things like that. Mm-hmm. During the pandemic, we had massive growth in the community, and now we're about 1,200 members that are together every day.
Now, how do you do that? Is that an online platform? It's a Slack channel, right? I think, and it's probably pretty busy. I imagine. Yeah,
it's very busy, and to give a little more depth to it, we've got owners, operators, project managers. We've got creative directors, design leaders, tech leaders, strategists.
Okay.
They all have their own channels and all sub-communities.
Yeah.
So they're in there talking about what's working, what's not working, new tools, all that sort of stuff. We tried to move away from Slack once, but it was a huge mistake.
Oh boy.
I wasted about 15 grand trying to build something on it. And everybody was like, can we just stay in Slack? And I'm I'm sorry.
Dang, man. Hey, we all make mistakes in our entrepreneurial endeavors, right? God, that's tough. Do. Well, now what was your goal in a community? Why were you trying to change the platform? Obviously, you're trying to give more value to the members. What was your goal in doing that?
Well, so as you said, I started as an attendee at Bureau events in 2012. And then my shop Engine was doing pretty well. And I just started spinning up other things and eventually got asked to come over to the Bureau and be a partner. Once I became a partner, the two founders left.
Oh, my God.
And so I was like, I guess I'm doing this. No, but it was a big gift. It was wonderful. And at that point, I realized I didn't want to be an event organization. I wanted to be a community because it's the everyday stuff that we need help with. It's not just the once or twice a year.
Yeah.
So that's very much what we've become. And I like to say we're a member-led organization because all of the programming we do comes out of that Slack channel, all of the conversations, the newsletter, all of that. But it's actually a bunch of tiny little secret rooms in that Slack. So for most people, they feel like they have maybe 10 channels, whereas I see well over 100.
Oh, I see. Okay, so you assign specific people. Like, do people go into a community, like the whole community, they have their own little group of 20 or 30 people, or is it by type? It's by type that it's broken up?
It's broken up. First of all, we have like a commons area where everybody is.
Okay. Yeah.
So you've got all 1,200 folks in there.
Yeah.
But then we've got like the job board. We have a lead sharing. We've got available talent. So a lot of people have a bench.
I see.
And the bench is then busy. So they'll say, hey, I've got a lot of Laravel developers if you need them.
Nice.
But then we also have digital agency owners, search owners, marketing owners, dev-only owners, that sort of thing, and also by size. So these are all things that we just try. And then every 3 months, I go in and I just shut down the ghost ships. So if there's a channel that just hasn't had anything in 3 months, you're out.
Okay. Well, because you want to keep it clean. You don't want your members rifling through things that there's no value inside of that channel, I guess, right? Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. Now,
I'll tell you one interesting thing was when the pandemic hit, we had about 1,600 people in there because all you had to do to be in the Slack channel was be an alumni.
Okay.
Then when, like you said, the communities, right? PPP, EIDL, all that stuff starts to become something we have to talk about.
Yep.
We've got work from home or remote.
Yeah.
We've got everything around COVID protocols.
Yeah. Man.
We had the free version of Slack, and every day we would hit over 10,000 messages, and messages would start to disappear.
Oh,
a member contacted Slack and said, hey, can you turn on the paid version for us at no cost? I still don't know who that member was. Whoever it was, thank you.
Wow.
And then Slack turned it on, and over 800,000 messages were suddenly available.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. So it quickly became a member benefit. And then over the course of 2020 to today, we went from 79 members because I'd shut it down. I didn't know what to do with membership to now we've got those 1,200, and we grow 5 or 10 members a week now.
Oh, my gosh. Now, is it a paid community?
It is.
Okay.
So it depends on when you came in, but for folks now, it's $89 a month or $8.99 for the year. That's the lowest level to come in at.
Okay. Nice. Wow. That is crazy. Yeah. So where are they coming from, that many per week? You're well known. The Bureau is completely well known in the agency space. Is that just networking and people know the value?
I think a lot of it comes from the community itself. They're telling everybody. We work with Metis Communications, who does a lot of our promotional stuff. So they're out there sharing things.
Yeah. But
a lot of it is an owner comes in, they start to see the benefit that they're getting because they're now being able to ask questions, legal questions. We've got Gabe Levine from Matchstick is in there. I know he's been on your show, I think. We've got Summit CPA in there for the financial side. Sorry.
I know Jody.
We've got other folks in there on HR. So they can ask a $300 an hour person a question and get an answer. Once they're in there and they start to see that, they want the rest of their team to have that experience. So a lot of it is growth from within the existing member companies.
Oh, I see. Okay. So, and they come in the same, that's the same price for them to come in.
They're different levels. There's like a company level and a partner level and all that. But most of them come in around that 89.
Yeah. Well, it's again, we lead a community, and it's CPA firm owners, these entrepreneurial people all over the U.S. and Canada, and it is wild how much as entrepreneurs we need other people, like-minded people that are because we feel crazy sometimes. We're like in our office going, "I think I'm nuts. Like, why have I done this to myself?" And then you find other people going, "Hey, I think that every single day," and you're like, "Okay, can we talk?" It's such a value. It's a mental and emotional value too. And you find in a community, is this true about the Bureau? People are not only sharing about business. It's like, guys, I'm thinking about just shutting this down. I hate this. What do I do now? Like, what are they struggling with?
I would say the biggest struggles right now, like to your point, the comfort is to know you're not in it alone. Yeah. Right. And then we saw around the third quarter last year, a few shops starting to say, hey, things seem to be slowing down. Just a few, just a trickle. Yeah. Then in the fourth quarter, people were like, my pipeline is full, but stalled.
That's what we've heard.
Coming through.
Yeah, interesting.
Then the first quarter, people started to say, hey, things are lightening up. It seems like they're coming through. A couple of weeks ago, not. And now they are. And so it's like, I would say, the biggest part of it when you start to look at it is people aren't sure where to invest. They aren't sure. Like Some of the shops are going through layoffs right now.
Yeah.
We did, to your point, we've had 2 shops that have closed in the last couple of weeks. But then we also have shops that are doing really well, but they're being quiet because they don't want to be the ones going, I don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
Everything's great.
Yeah.
And then also we do have, I think we're about to see a big merger season. So we call them bureau babies when 2 member shops combine. So we've had maybe 4 bureau babies in the last year. And we're actually working on an event where owners who want to sell and owners who want to buy, we're going to get together in a secret location so nobody will know. And try to see if we can't accelerate some of this because it's painful for the shops trying to sell.
Yeah, it's hard. That's really cool. We're seeing that in the accounting profession too. We're seeing a lot of private equity come in and actually start to merge and combine a lot of agencies. Why do agency owners do that? Why do they think they're ready to do it really? And why did you do it? Because it's kind of hard, it's kind of gut wrenching to go, am I leaving this behind forever? Like, what did you go through and what do you think other people are trying to get out of shutting it down or merging or selling or whatever? Are they trying to escape?
I think they're trying to stop the pain.
Okay.
So escape, I think, is a good way to look at it. For me, I had fallen out of love with running an agency, right? And we were web shops back in the day. We never called it agency. Agency was what we left. Right.
That's true.
And
interesting.
But for me, I fell in love with this idea of the bureau, of building community. Now the challenge is scaling intimacy. How at this size do you still feel like everybody has their place? But for me, it was easy because I realized I was frustrated when I was working with my engine stuff because I couldn't get to my community building over at the bureau. So that was real easy for me to decide it's time for this to shove off.
Okay.
But for others, I think it's one of 2 things. There was a season a year and a half ago where there were a lot of big firms. I'm not a big broker fan. I've publicly said a few things, Barney. And anyway, they took
I'm gonna ask about
advantage a little bit, but they also were able to get people what they wanted. So they filled a service. But I think for most owners, when they're looking to sell, it's not about making a big money. They're not looking to cash out.
Right.
They're just looking to get out because it's just gotten too hard with the cost of talent, the difficulties in landing work, all that sort of stuff. They've just had enough.
Yeah. Well, why did you fall out of love with, was it, when you get to a certain size, the operations of a service-based company are pretty heavy on the owner. And a lot of people don't know actually how heavy that is unless you own a company, because it requires so much from the founder owner. It was just too much on your shoulders personally to keep wanting to do it?
Yeah. So, we had an innovative business model that we did called the jellyfish model. Now, it was kind of model as marketing. It sounded good. We got some articles and stuff. But it was because I didn't want to be in charge, right? I didn't want to be important. I wanted to get my life back. And I realized one day that being important in this organization is taking everything from me. Especially because we had grown to, we were just over 40 people, but we were in 8 different time zones.
Yeah.
So we had people in Wales, we had people all over the US, we had one person in Australia. And so suddenly I felt like I could never go to sleep because somebody wasn't able to do what they needed to do because of me. And we were a flattish organization.
Yeah.
So I think really for me, I got to this point where I had escaped from Engine.
Yeah.
And it was running itself. And then when it tried to pull me back in, that was when I was just like, I've got to make a decision.
Okay.
And I was like, I'm so much happier over here.
Yeah.
Even my wife said it. She was like, you seem so happy right now. Please don't go backwards.
Yeah. Now, did you got it to run itself, so to speak? Were you kind of like, you were a founding board member kind of at that point. Was somebody else a CEO, but then they left and you had to, what happened that it started to drag you back?
So we flipped the model where clients had to pitch us on why we should take their work. And this sounds really ridiculous and like it wouldn't work, but there's a movie called The Dallas Steve. And it's a really great movie. And one of the things they talk about is it's human nature to chase what retreats from us.
Yeah.
So if you think about it, if a dog gets out of your backyard
Yeah.
and you chase the dog's going to run away. But if you look at it, make a funny noise and run away from it,
Yeah.
it can't help but chase you. And then it's back in the backyard and it doesn't know what happened.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with clients, right? And this is manipulative. So this was some of the feedback we got. But a client would contact us and we would just be like, I would say, hey, we don't just take on projects. If you work with somebody that just takes on projects, and what's going to happen is there's some creator or some talent that's going to get a folder dropped on their desk or a big email sent. And they're going to be told, you have to do this. What we do is we share opportunities with the team and we say, who wants to work on this? Because what happens is they opt in. And if nobody opts in to work on your project, why would you want somebody working on your stuff that doesn't want to work on your stuff? Right? And then we would tell them, we need you to write us a few paragraphs. We'll drop it into it was Basecamp at the time. And I'll let you know if the team shows up, if they want to do it or not.
Wow. Yeah. And that worked consistently all the time? Or did some clients go, I'm not doing that? Do you?
Well, I will say that we had Microsoft and Facebook as clients at the time.
Okay. Well,
they were not going to play that game.
Okay.
I actually had somebody from Microsoft tell me they were not going to drink my hippie juice.
That's awesome. You're like, this is awesome. I've built the right thing, right?
And we actually didn't take what's notoriously known as the Microsoft project. So it was one of these where we just said, what's the story I can tell? That I didn't take it or that they paid us triple rate and we got sued? I don't want that. So, and then Facebook also, it was one of those things, the team decided they didn't want to work on Facebook anymore. And we'd only done a few projects. We were one of like 7 shops that had been allowed to work on that stuff way back. It was like 2011. And so the challenge became, because I put the team in charge, eventually there was so little things they wanted to work on. Right. And we got a reputation for being difficult. Which I kind of wear proudly.
You're like, that's the badge you went out on, right? So basically.
But that's what pulled me back in was the only part of our model, the jellyfish model, was that it didn't have a biz dev component. But the team got to choose the work, and then they would elect a champion for the project who would be the one in charge. And it was we once got called the People's Republic of Engine. I think it was very much a socialist way of running an organization.
Man, you've got a lot of labels and names you've been called, which is super cool. I mean,
I sure do.
Man, if we could have somebody claim our hippie juice, I'm like, yes, we are getting where we want to be. Well, how have you? Let's see, 2016, is that when you took over the
that's
bureau?
When I took over.
Okay, so that's 7 years ago, or it's this year's 7 years, right? What do you care about that's different now, having led a community for so long, where you entrepreneurially led an agency? How have you changed in 7 years? Of course, that's a crazy question. We've all changed in the past 7 years, especially but how have you changed in leading the bureau?
I would say that first of all, the things that haven't changed, I still don't want to be in charge. I still want others to make decisions for themselves and to move forward. Because one of the challenges, and this was the little bit of an origin story, is my daughter, she turns 20 next week, but figure when she was around 12, she came out back and I was working and she said, how do you want to be remembered?
Oh, boy.
And I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, when you're dead, like when you're gone, how do you want to be remembered? And I was like, well, that I was a nice guy who was successful and didn't have to hurt anybody to be successful. And she goes, okay. And she was the kid of an agency owner. So you got to realize that. And she goes, so how are you going to measure that? Because you always tell me what gets measured gets done. And I said, well, I'll measure it based on the number of people I can help. And then she said, how does that scale? And she was joking with me, right? My wife had put her up to it.
Wow.
But she said, how's that scale? And I was like, I don't know. And then I told her I'd get back to her. And then I realized it's the bureau. I don't have to help anyone. I just have to put people together that can help each other. Okay. And that's how it scales.
Okay.
So what's changed? I think the little stuff doesn't bother me as much. You know, when you have 5 clients versus 1,200 members, you realize that some people are just going to fall out of love with what you're doing, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's like you have to go with what is going to be the best for the group.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to create spaces for the group to self-organize. Like we have a book club that's run by members. We have a women's leadership group called the Bad Bitches, which is run by women, which is members. We have a running club that's organizing a 5K. So for me, I think letting go of that control even more and letting it self-organize, I think that's the biggest change. I've just learned to be kind of a facilitator and an accelerator versus trying to be the person in charge.
Okay. Yeah. And like you said, sometimes you go, well, you're right for us at this time. You may not be next year. And just to not be sad about people come in and out of a community. They do in our community. They find the support they need for a period of time in their life. And then they're like, I think I got this. I need to go stand on my own 2 feet, and just different decisions. And I guess you got to let go of those relationships that leave in a community.
I mean, I think that's absolutely it. And what you were saying earlier about commiserating on how difficult things are. There's a saying in the Bureau, I don't suck. This shit is hard.
Right? And that's true.
Like, that's something we tell everybody all the time. Look, you're not bad at this. It's just really difficult. And you've signed up for it. So when you start to realize that some people are going to get to a place where they feel better about it, they can move on. But I'll tell you one of the proudest, or I guess one of the most emotional and even a little bit vain, was when a shop leaves but their employees stay.
Oh, wow.
Always feels really good. They're like, hey, we're going to stay. We know that they're closing the company account, but we want to stay here. But I had somebody who was leaving, and she shot me a copy of her cover letter. And it said that her Bureau membership had to be covered by any company that hired her. Like she said, I just want you to know that this is part of my
deal.
Financial requirements. Yeah.
That's a trip.
How cool is that?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's super cool, man. You should wear that as a badge. So
I got goosebumps again.
I know, that's so cool. Well, so one of the cool things about talking to somebody like you is really kind of getting the story of the profession, kind of what's happening out there. And you did say there's mergers and things happening. What's the broker deal? What about brokers do you not appreciate really, though you see their value too? What is that you feel in the change in the profession?
I think the thing that bothers me, and again, they're good people at every organization, and I'm not backtracking at all. And then there's a time where certain things work, but you have some brokers out there who are very much like real estate agents, and they don't care about the properties they're selling. Right. You'll see that they start to change their business model if they're not able to sell stuff, and they'll have monthly fees. So those monthly fees could start at $2,500, but then if they're really busy, they go to $7,500 with no commitment to help somebody. And the thing is, most of the shops that go to them, they're on the ropes. They're struggling. They get promised the moon, and then they might get, a little bit of sand in the yard. It's like that's a big part of it for me. But then there are people, like I'll throw Baker out there. David C. Baker, he's with Jonathan. They've spun up something now, and they're helping some shops. And David's a polarizing guy. He's a friend, but come on. He has his moments.
That's his deal,
and then
man.
There's some other smaller groups, but I think if it's the difference between somebody who's just looking to make money on somebody who's a little bit down and maybe convince them to sell for much less than they expected versus a smaller broker who's really going to be kind of that hand-holding, let's see what we have, and tell you the truth. I think that's the biggest challenge for me. But the other thing I think that's about to happen is we're also going to see a lot of the big organizations, like I always think Saatchi and Saatchi, but the ones that are here in the digital space, I think we're going to see a lot of roll-ups.
Okay.
I think we're going to see that too.
Okay. So holding companies too are part of what snatch up even larger agencies. So why do you think we're going to see roll-ups? Do you think entrepreneurially people they're really struggling to lead their own organization because it is very difficult to do? Is that why you're going to see roll-ups, you think, or is there some other economic reason?
I think there's that. I think also, and this is just something I've seen, but I think every 5 years it ebbs and flows where Like in-house really grew really fast. You saw that a lot. And then just over the last couple of years, you've started to see those layoffs, but you've also started to see a lot more people come out into the market. So when more people come out into the market, I'll say Stephen Gates is a great example. You know, Stephen led the team at American Airlines. He had an app in the App Store. He was featured on stage. He was the evangelist at Envision. Then he was at Weight Watchers. Now he's got his own shop called Crazy. And so I think you see these really talented in-house people that are going to come out. That's going to create more pressure for the other shops because now there's a new shiny shop. So again, they're just more willing. And I think for the roll-ups, I think they're just looking for the talent and they're trying to get it in a way that it's faster. In my experience and from talking with a lot of people, within 3 years, nobody from an agency is still there after a merger. It's or after an acquisition, like they all lose faith in whatever it was and they just take off. Right? I think it's just economic pressure and then a lot more competition in the market.
I guess when you've been in an industry for a long time, and you have been, you see those ebbs and flows, right? If you came out of school 3 or 4 years ago and you're just now kind of getting into being a senior designer or something in an agency, you don't yet know, hey, 20 years ago we did this, you know, and so you start to go, this is just part of the pattern we're gonna ebb through. It gives you a little bit more peace, right, when you get older, because you're like, you know what I saw 20 years ago, then I saw 15, and then you go, it's probably happening again. And does it not feel so heavy that you're like, people might roll up in the next 5 years, and then in 20 years it'll be a little bit different again? Does it just feel simpler and easier to see those patterns?
I think it feels more obvious. I don't know that I always trust myself with what I think I see because I know I want to see certain things, right? Like it'll just make, to your point, it'll be more comfortable. But I'll never forget the only boss I ever had, Melanie Husk. Melanie ran the agency I went to right after college. And she told me one day, she came into my office and she goes, I know you're a little slow right now. I know you don't have a lot of work to do. Enjoy this. It will not last. And what's going to happen is you're going to sit here and you're going to worry about it instead of organizing those files over there that you haven't done. And what you should do is just use this. And if you think about the beginning of the pandemic, so many people fixed so many problems in their companies.
That's true.
They got things turned around. So I think a lot of it does feel familiar, like you're watching a rerun. Help me on LinkedIn and Twitter sometimes. I just want to put hashtag rerun when somebody's saying something that 30 other people have said. Well,
it is helpful having done it for a long time to go, you know, I've weathered a lot of hard things and I can weather what's happening now. Though every new thing we're in is freaky, right? Even the pandemic was such a freaky, weird moment. And after it, now we're all going, oh my God, what's happening? You know, it's like, well, I think it's just a little recession. You need to just calm down. We're not going to have another pandemic. Or maybe we are. I just said that and jinxed it. I don't know. But I mean, are people just hyped up and worried about what they're starting to feel and experience right now?
I think it's a mix, but I'll say this, you know, we were talking earlier about what's changing. I think the events landscape is changing massively. Like really big and smaller. Like we're getting ready to redo all of our events. I've got a survey that's going out to the community to ask them what they want, right? But E3 is not happening. So you start to look at these massive ones that aren't getting the support. I think online events are starting to suffer as well. And I don't know if it's the financial side, the time side, what it is, but it feels like we may be evented out.
That's interesting. Well, maybe we're seeing it change too in our community. We do have a big anchor conference and a lot of virtual learning, right? You join a Zoom and we kind of teach and work together, and then some smaller live events that people are coming to. But they find a lot of value in live events still. But they love an intimate event. They want it to be smaller. They want it to be capped. They want it to be small on purpose. And I guess there's a place for big events. We're seeing a lot of large software companies run the big, really large events. So some people come away from those and it's like, It was just
Yeah.
a mass of people.
I didn't get the hallway conversation.
Right.
I didn't get the small, intimate. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's what the Bureau, because we have a lot of clients in Bureau and they go to the events, and that's the thing, right? It's like I get to be with people. I get to talk to people. So how do you do that on purpose? How do you create an event where people are going to get to have a hall conversation or around a beer or something? How do you do that on purpose?
Yeah. So what we do, and I will say that our smaller events, our camps, which are capped at 30 people, those sell out in 3 days. And it's a $4,000 ticket.
Yeah.
That's not a cheap ticket.
No.
But they are gone immediately.
Yes.
And what we do is, first of all, when people apply to join, they tell us their challenges that they're going through. They tell us their successes that they've had. They tell us all that. So we look across all 30 and we find the right mix of people who've succeeded where others are challenged, right? But it's got to be a round robin, right? It can't just be, well, this person succeeded at 1,000 things but hadn't failed at anything. You have to have some level of angst and need for companionship, for people to come in and help you. And that works unbelievably well. And that goes back to the Greg Hoy and Greg Story, who started the Bureau. Like that was their concept. The survey we do now is probably still 60% what they started with.
Oh, wow.
But when you do that and people know that they are the reason, it's not like there's a big event. We're going to have people on stage talking about stuff, 30, 40, 50% may be applicable, some of it may be entertaining. We're going to sit down. You're the speaker, right? You're the one asking the questions, and you're going to get direct feedback. It's amazing. The first day is always the people who've been before are just right back in the flow.
Yeah.
The new people are kind of hesitant, but by day 2, everybody's leaning in.
Yeah.
Everybody's raising their hand. Everybody's, it's great.
Well, it's because you have those alumni come back and they show the way. It's like, no, we talk about real stuff. And they're like, wow, I'm mind blown what y'all are talking about behind closed doors. It's a trip. Well, that's cool.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
The right sprinkle of alumni is critical.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you're inviting people into these camps in a community where it's like, we're not looking for the rock star that knows everything that's going to kind of, take over the room. It's like, no, you got to be struggling with something and something you can win at too. And we're all giving all that to each other. And there's a survey before they go to the camp that helps them identify the thing I need to know, and here's something I can do to help other people? Or how do you do that?
Yeah. So basically it is a survey that says, give us your top 3 challenges, give us your top 3 successes, give us the questions you want to ask the room, right? Because sometimes, and there's always a tools discussion.
Yep.
It's, that always eventually comes up. And sorry, Jason, not you, Jason, but the other Jason.
Yeah.
Is always that question, are you still using Basecamp?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's one of those where everybody's always looking to move on from something. But the real discussions get around people, get around burnout, get around financial concerns, right? We had one person at a shop, and because we take the oath, obviously I can only say some stuff, but they got scammed by another country that was told them that they had hired somebody out of Florida, which feels like another country. I'm here. But they'd hired somebody in Florida and then found out 3 or 4 months later that they actually didn't even live in the United States, but they were taking the money and funneling it. And so the things that you find out are just,
oh my gosh,
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like that's a real outlier. Like they aren't all like that. But then the rest of the room is like going, oh, we have to be on high alert for this.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And that's nice for them to hear it from their community, people that they trust. So you said, what are the pipelines now? They're opening up for people. Like we heard they were stalling in the Q4. Are they opening up a little bit? Because we're still not sure about, are we in a recession? Are we headed towards one? What do you think about all that economically for agencies?
Yeah, I think right now it's a lot of work is coming back, but there's a gap. And that's why we're seeing the layoffs. Like people have gone through the reserves. They don't think they can make it the next 2 to 3 months for the money to come back in. So they're letting people go.
Okay.
We've had probably 4 layoffs or adjustments in the last 2 weeks that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
Normally, based on what I see, it's probably 2 or 3 times that. But then today in one of the biz dev channels, somebody was saying just had two things that have been on hold for 6 months come back.
Yeah.
Right. Just landed a big project that we thought wasn't going to happen. And then right after that, somebody else says, yeah, it's still really quiet over here.
Yeah. Okay.
So unlike the pandemic where you could tell by industry.
Yeah.
Like if you were in hospitality or travel, you were done.
Right.
If you were in healthcare or government, you were going to crush. Right. There didn't seem to be a rhyme or reason to it. I will say the weirdest thing about this time, which was totally different from the pandemic and nothing I've ever seen before, retainers were getting canceled. And I'd never heard of retainers getting canceled, but that was happening across the board.
And that's
But to your question, I think we're 3 months. I think in the next 2 to 3 months, all the clients are going to realize they have to stay in business. And to stay in business, they're going to have to work with shops or hire inside.
Okay.
Nobody wants the liability of hiring a team right now.
Yeah.
So they want that outside resource. And then we go into an election year next year.
Yeah.
So that always slows things down again.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It seems like there's going to be a lot of pumping the brakes for the next year or two.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask you one more question about kind of what you're seeing out there. And then I want to talk about your salary, digital salary guide that came up. And I know some of that's changed. It's got some data from 2021, but I'm just, what do you think about technology? I know ChatGPT, AI is, what's that going to do? I mean, that's a 400-hour conversation, but what is that doing to agencies right now? Or are they just like the rest of the world going, this is awesome and it's kind of freaky? Like, what's the perception?
Yeah, so I think it's a mix. We have an event called Open Mic. Anyone in the community can say, I want to present to the community. I'm going to grab the mic.
Cool.
So JP Holika at a shop called Power Shifter, he gave a talk on AI for agencies. It was just an intro to AI, and he was showing how they were using it, right? ChatGPT, some of the visual AI, there's a presentation AI. So he goes through and he shares all this. By the end of that day, a bunch of us, we have an AI channel, a bunch of us in the AI channel are like, I just used ChatGPT and I don't know how I'm ever going to go back.
I know.
Right?
It's crazy.
Like it's one of those, I use it 3 or 4 times a day. Yeah. And I think the biggest thing, and I think this is what agencies know, is that it's an input. It's not an output.
Yeah.
This is just something to help us break log jams.
Yeah.
There's one shop that right now is using it to create icons to share with a client to get feedback. So it's that first generation.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So comps are getting replaced, right? This idea of anything like that. The coding side of it, pretty cool. But so you start looking at the coding side and the writing side, and I think that's where I would be nervous, just like photographers got nervous. Yeah. But there's also the professional aspect to it. And Dale Bertrand, who's got a shop called Fire and Spark, Dale worked in AI I think he was at MIT. He might have done some stuff with the government over a decade ago. And now he's got a really powerful search firm. We were talking yesterday. We've got at Owner Summit, which is coming up in May in New Orleans, we're going to have a panel, which is going to be Gabe Levine on the legal side of AI, Dale on the, creation side of AI, and ChatGPT as a panelist.
Oh, that's good. That's awesome.
What they're doing. We came up with it yesterday. I'm so excited about it.
That's so cool. But
I don't think it's going to replace anything any more than advertising agencies went away or we stopped using paper when the internet came on.
Right.
I think we'll learn new ways to use these tools to accelerate what we do.
Yeah.
For me, like when I'm putting together an agenda and I have speakers who I can't get their talk title or their talk description, I ask him to send me some bullets. I throw it in ChatGPT. I send it back to him in 5 minutes. I've cut a week of back and forth and frustration out for me and for them.
Yeah.
So I think that's it. It's just going to break through some of those. But I think in the near term, we'll see so much change. Clients are going to ask confusing questions that they don't understand, and we aren't sure if they're right or not.
Right, yeah.
But I think we all elevate, and the strong shops survive.
Yeah, and then we learn how to use it as a tool, right? And stop the fear of are we going to be replaced and all that? Because and again, I believe you cannot replace the professional care and the ability to coach and ask and truly create a brand based upon the heart, mind, and mission of this client you're working with. But a chat GPT can really help you summarize a lot of the 10 top tweets you need to help a client with or something based upon some great, thing that they're writing.
Absolutely. It helped me get my daughter to clean her apartment in New York.
How did you do that?
I wrote, so I like, my family was going up to see her. I know who she is. And I'm like, she's my kid, so the place is a wreck. And basically, I wrote in Chat GPT, I said, please give me 25 words to ask my daughter to clean her apartment in the tone of Harry Styles. And so it wrote, hey, Sparkles, I can't wait to see you. And you know it's going to be amazing dancing around your apartment. But we can't dance and have fun if it's a wreck, right? So it just did that. I sent it to her and she goes, you cheated. I don't know how, but you cheated. It was magic, right?
Yeah, that is
magic. But that's one of the things I think is great is that I've saved time from my team because I don't ask them to proofread anything anymore. I don't ask them, how does this tone sound anymore? I'll put in ChatGPT. I will give it 5 things that I've written and say, write it in my style.
Yeah.
And it's putting emojis where I would put emojis, right? It's doing all of that stuff.
That's crazy.
And then I'll say, make it, 20 words shorter.
Yeah.
Make it a 6th grade reading level.
Yeah.
Whatever it might be.
It's amazing.
And it just does it.
Yeah.
So I think that's it. It'll accelerate for us as creators.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And we don't have to fear it. So that's awesome.
No.
Okay, a couple quick questions on the digital services salary guide. You guys do this. How often do you do that? Every few years, or
we were doing it annually, but things got so just out of control, shaky. We thought it wasn't worth doing. We're getting ready to do it again.
Okay. So the data, the most recent one, I think it was the 2022 guide. It's based upon 2021.
21 data.
21 data. Okay. So I did see it was wild. Operations salaries grew substantially over 2019, the last time you did it. And it's like, that's a trip. Operations, what does that even mean? Is it non-technical creative people that are just admin, COOs, finance? Is that what's really grown as salaries?
So it's really directors of operations. It is people who are like ops managers, but this is the glue. And I think the reason it grew so much was because the industry matured. Yeah. Right. If you had asked me when I was running Engine Works about our utilization, I would be like, what are you talking about? Utilization? I say, we have more money at the end of the month than the beginning. I'm feeling good.
Is that good?
I don't have any idea what you mean. Or if, people are starting to look at when they hire different roles based on what they have, they're starting to get better at projecting out. And all of this requires somebody who can make sure that everything from the initial engagement to the next, project or growing a client, from biz dev, people ops, all that kind of stuff, somebody has to be that glue.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what we're seeing is a lot of times it's a project manager who gets elevated up to operations. They've got a lot of the same makeup. They're wired the same way.
Yeah.
But the shops that have strong operations grow faster, grow stronger, hire more, and reward that ops person for the great work they did.
Cool. Okay. Because they recognize them bringing the structure to this organization. Because service-based creative work can be somewhat chaotic, right? All this work flowing in and everybody's like delivering whatever they're delivering. You start to need levels of review, ops, the SOWs, the master service agreements going out, billing, payroll. That stuff's a huge deal in a larger agency.
And making sure that you're plugging the holes where all the time gets wasted. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a huge part of it is, if nothing else, a great operations person is a great communicator who can get other people to be great communicators. Yeah. Because if you look at any problem a shop is having, it's almost always going to go back to bad communication. Somebody misunderstood something, and for 2 weeks they went the wrong way.
Yeah, yeah. I love in the guide, because we've seen this in consulting with agencies. There are some patterns you can see in team sizes. So you guys bucketed owners and the money they made in under 10 team, and then team 10 to 24, which what we're hearing is that's a rough place to be, 10 to 24 teams. And then 25 to 50 is a much, you got a lot more people, some of the duplicated roles you can kind of roll work into. And we kind of saw in the guide, they were making $112,000 the owner in under 10, and then it dropped a little bit to 100 in 10 to 24. Then it shot back up to 165 between 25 and 50. But now the distributions area, which was another column on this services, this digital salary services guide, that was always climbing. Where is the best team size for an agency owner to make the most money? And maybe that's not even the right question. What are you seeing in terms of where people are comfortable with the money they're making at the team size? That's important.
Yeah, I think, so first of all, especially in our community, we have so many different outputs. Like, are you creating a marketing plan? Are you creating an app? Yeah. Right? Are you creating, so like whatever you're creating is going to say a lot about the money that you make and that sort of thing. Yeah. I think there's a dip in the middle. Now, Kelly Goto, who ran GoToMedia for a long time, I think she still is. She wrote Web Redesign Workflow That Works, one of those original books on process. She said once that between 20 and 50 was where web agencies go to die. Like 20 to 50 people, because you can't figure out your systems. You can't figure out your services. I think we've matured again. I think we're better at it now. But when we get to that 10 to 24 range, there's a growth that's happening. You're losing your original team because they didn't, we call it old growth. They didn't know that you were going to be hiring these other people, and they've lost faith in what they thought was going to happen. So now you're pumping cash into the team, my personal belief. And so then you're trying to get up to that point where it catches again. Yeah. And then it starts to run itself. But your old systems, when you were less than 10, don't work anymore. Your old way of work, you can't keep up with everything as an owner. Right. And so I think that's part of the dip. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's hard when people run into it, and because you don't know why when you're in the middle of it. And we consult with people through it, and we're like, hey, this is pretty normal. Don't flip out. We got to figure out what's going on, right? But you got to start being able to fund bringing these team in so you can invest in growth. So it's hard to know. Growth is expensive. Yeah, it is really, and labor's the biggest cost, for agencies. So, especially when you're replacing folks you've had for a long time. Right. Yeah, that knowledge, you got to replace the knowledge that you had. So exactly. Well, cool. Well, so we'll wrap up here, Carl. But what are you excited about in the Bureau kind of coming up? What's the most exciting thing? I mean, I know you have a lot going on. So. Yeah, we have a lot going on. I think the most exciting thing for me, again, is the self-organization. Yeah. We have a group that just started a Love and Business channel, which is basically a group for folks who are running a business with their significant other. Like, that makes me, just anytime I see the community start to organize itself, that's when I feel like this is really working. Okay. But for me personally, what I'm most excited about is this idea of working with the community to retool the events, retool how we get together. Yeah. What made sense 2 years ago isn't what makes sense now. So I think that's what I'm most excited about. And part of that is, like, Operations Summit is coming up at the end of this month. All online events we made free because of the membership revenue. Yeah. So now we're able to just do so much more and not worry so much about the money. Yeah. I mean, we still worry about it. Yeah. But we're able to just invest more into what the value is. Yeah. Very cool. Well, cool. Tell us the website to go to check out the Bureau. Sure. I spelled engine a weird way. I inherited the Bureau, and Bureau is one of those weird words, right? It is so weird. So nobody knows how to spell that, man. Bureau. I do now. Bureau. Okay. I think that's right. Yeah. But it's just bureauofdigital.com. Yeah. You can also go to bureauevents.com if you just want to check that out, or bureaumembership.com. Yeah. But bureauofdigital.com will get you there. Very cool. All right. Carl, thanks for being on the Businessology Show. I appreciate your time, man. You got it. I appreciate it. Thank you, Jason. All right. We'll see you. Bye-bye.